Shalom, shalom, and welcome back to Submissionisherposture. Today I wanted to have a conversation and as well as share some words of encouragement on a topic that has kind of been sitting in my mind for a few days, and I wanted to wait to the proper time to address the matter. I am seeing a rise of sisters coming out and talking against the concept or the order that the Most High has set in place. Granted, there are a lot of things that have transpired down through the years, but one thing that is consistent and that is certain: the order of Yahuwah is firm. It does not change and it is not altered because we have experiences that are unfavored. They didn't turn out in our favor. We walked away from those situations with a few bumps or bruises. We walked away from those experiences with a little anger, or for some people a lot of anger, bitterness, or whatever trauma, whatever it was that you walked away from those experiences with. I just want to make it very, very clear that those experiences, what you felt, all of those things may be very valid. However, they do not change nor do they alter the order of Yahuwah. It stands. The reason I know this to be true and why I can stand so boldly on speaking what I'm about to say is that, and what I've already said, is that if you put a perfect man and a perfect woman in a space together, the order of Yahuwah would naturally function. And so I'm going to say this again, because we experience unfavorable outcomes, the word that states the order of Yahuwah does not change. The man will always be above the woman. He will always be in the position to lead, to guide, to direct, to correct. His position stands. Now, I'm gonna have kind of like a sidebar really quick, because I want my sisters to understand that I'm not saying by any means necessary for you to submit yourselves to a man who is not proven. Neither am I saying to just deal with a man who's just treating you any kind of way so that you can fit into the structure that Yahuwah has established as order. I'm not saying that. But what I am saying, and the reason this matter has been kind of sitting on my mind for a few days, is because I wanted to address it properly. I want to make it known, to make it clear that when we experience these unfavorable outcomes, we have to stop. We have to heal. We have to realign ourselves to the standard, to the order, to the structure. Once we do that, we put ourselves in the position to be courted, to be betrothed, to be married in covenant to a man who is proven, to a man who is fitting to be served, to be submitted to obey under his authority. But when we go from one unfavorable experience to another unfavorable experience to another unfavorable experience, those traumas impact the way that we think and the way that we move. And the daunting thing about that whole process is that when we began to act out and we began to say things, we began to teach things, we began to share things with other women or, on our platforms, we have to understand that we're going to be held accountable for those things. And a lot of what I'm seeing and what I'm hearing is incorrect, and it's being done out of the trauma that individual has experienced, and they are reading the word, the scriptures, out of context, or they're reading the word, the scriptures, through a perspective that is not whole. And when we do that, we run the risk of creating false doctrines and sharing false information. And that's a bad move. That is a bad move. And I'm speaking from experience. I remember, I want to say about 2011 or 12, maybe even 2013, after I had come out of a few relationships and they were not pretty at all. I want to say it was about 2 relationships that I had experienced kind of back to back with a few months in between. And I call myself starting a nonprofit organization called Life After the Pain. I had not dealt with the traumas of my childhood, the traumas of my mid-adulthood, and the traumas that I had experienced in these 2 relationships. And here I am starting a nonprofit organization, thinking that I'm setting out to help women, thinking that I'm setting out to share my story that's going to uplift and that's going to motivate women to live life after the pain. But very shortly into me, quote unquote, starting this nonprofit organization, it did not get off the ground. The Father stopped me in my tracks, because what I was about to share, and not even that any of it would have been intentionally, but I would have been held accountable for encouraging women to just go live their life after the pain. That's not the will of the Father. The will of the Father is for us to be healed, to be whole, and then to live the abundant life in His Son. But when we are full of trauma, disappointment, fear, doubt, discouraged, just all over the place, and we're quote unquote living, we're in error, and we're not living in His Son. We may have knowledge of His Son, we may have experienced His Son, but we're not living, moving, and having our being in His Son. The only way for us to be one in the Father and in the Son is we have to be like them. We have to be made whole. We have to be perfected. And this perfection is not according to the world. This wholeness is not according to the world. It is one who has been transformed by the renewing of their mind. Excuse me, I had to come inside so that I can finish this discussion. But where I left off is that when I left off by saying, when we have been transformed by the renewing of our mind, and when we have began to work out our salvation with fear and with trembling, these are signs. This is evidence that we are operating, that we're functioning in the Son. But when we're holding on to these traumas, these disappointments, these unfavorable experiences, we're not walking in the Son. If you look at His, quote unquote ministry, when He walked on the earth, it was all about fixing our heart posture, dealing with those matters that are going to keep us out of the kingdom. So I don't know how I got way over here, but I want to bring myself back so that we can hone in on the purpose of this discussion and prayerfully word of encouragement today is that when we have these unfavorable experiences, this disappointment, this hurt, this pain, do not take those elements and begin to walk contrary to the word of Elohim. Begin to share doctrines from the perspective of those experiences, because we are commanded to not add to nor to take away from the word of Elohim. Our best bet is to heal, get wise counsel. And I'm talking about wise counsel from someone. If it happens to be another woman, make sure this woman is bearing fruit of her healing, bearing fruit of her wholeness, not someone who has the same experience that you have and they're walking in quote unquote healing as you're trying to walk in quote unquote healing. But you need to be dealing with a wise counselor who may have already had this experience and they're bearing fruit of the healing and the wholeness. Or maybe they haven't had this experience, but they're able to give insight. They're able to give wisdom. They're able to point and direct you. Preferably, let it be a man. But if it happens to be a woman that you are seeking wise counsel from, let it be someone who's bearing fruit. Someone who's bearing much fruit, and not only just fruit, but mature fruit that can be eaten and it won't cause you to get sick. That's like a whole nother topic of conversation. But I'm saying all this because there's a lot of sisters. There's a lot of sisters who are making hints at or speaking against this order that Yahuwah has established. I have not been sent to correct the men or judge the men or hold the men accountable. I'm sure there's many brothers out there who the Most High has raised up and has put his ruach in them to correct the brothers, or at least attempt to correct them. But I'm not here for that. That's not my job. That's not my plight. I'm here to encourage my sisters. I'm here to share words of accountability, if you will, in hopes that they would cause us to want to be accountable for what we're dealing with, or just things that we're going through. However, I just want to make it very, very clear that the word of Yahuwah stands regardless of how we feel, regardless of what we experience. His words stand, and we never want to put ourselves in a position where we allow the things that we feel and things that we are experiencing to make us speak against the word of Yahuwah, because we're going to be held accountable for it. Yahuwah is not going to pardon us just because we say, oh, I was having a bad day. When we are having bad days, we got to pick up some tools to put in our toolbox. Journaling, reading. If you're so in your emotions that it's causing an uproar within, maybe you need to go somewhere and cry. Maybe you need to go to a place that has a batting cage where you can swing a bat at, I don't even know what they're called, but the puffy thing. I don't know what it's called. But you get in that batting cage and you bat those emotions out. You take that anger and that bitterness and that frustration, take it out on that mat, because that's what it's created for. Yahuwah did not create us to spew these emotions onto another person, whether it is intentionally or unintentionally. That's not what Yahuwah created us to do. We have to be accountable. So as I bring this discussion, or prayerfully, there's some encouragement and something that I have said to a close, I just want to reiterate where I started off. Sisters, our unfavorable experiences, unfavorable outcomes, disappointments, situations, they do not change the order of Yahuwah. They do not change the position that the Father has put the man in. It does not change the position that he has put us in to be under the man or to be led, to be guided by the man. What it just means is that we have a situation that we have to work through, that we have to be healed from. And once we are able to work through and be healed from those situations, then we can get back in the game. Or for some, you may just sit on the sideline and rest in your healing, rest in your deliverance until Yahuwah says it's time to get back in the game. Don't go through these experiences or have these experiences and then jump out here and get a platform or start sharing your story or teaching or jumping into the scriptures or whatever it is with all of that inside of you. It is no way for us to properly see and understand and to walk out the scriptures when we have these elements within us. And that can be for a sister. That can even be for a brother. But as I mentioned, that's not my plight to talk to the brothers. May we heal. May we become whole so that we can properly represent our Heavenly Father and His Son and our governing authorities, whether it be a father, a husband, a brother, uncle, whatever, whoever your governing authority is, so that we can be a proper representation of them, as well as being the proper representation of the daughters of Zion. All this bickering back and forth and pointing the fingers, it's not solving the problems. It just creates more confusion, not only between you and the person that you're going back and forth with, but the audience in which you are doing it in front of. You're bringing them into this situation, and Yah forbid they're a babe in this truth. It's almost like, do I even want to be a part of this? So we have to be careful, because once these things go out on the internet, they are out there. And even if one person happens to stumble across a message, a video, a teaching, whatever it is that you have put out there, and it's an improper representation of our Father, and an improper representation of being a daughter of Zion, you have just recruited it, or you could have possibly just recruited someone to partake in your error, your folly. So we just have to be careful. And I pray that what I have shared thus far be of encouragement and not be of a stumbling block to anyone, because it is my desire for us as the daughters of Zion to walk in wholeness. So I close this discussion / encouragement by saying shalom, shalom. And I pray that you all have a Yah-filled day in His Son, Yahushua Messiah. Shalom, shalom.